Now, I'm so sorry that we're getting so much light behind the painting. I think I'll leave it like that because otherwise it's just too dark. Okay, final layer, final stage, final phase. If you've joined me before, let me repeat this litany. How do you know where to start the last stage? And there are 4 options for starting this last layer. 4 different right choices. And with each painting, it's a different right choice. There are 4 options. One is start like a traditional oil painter with the furthermost object, which is almost, if a landscape, is always the sky. So option number 1 is start with the sky and move forward. Option number 2, start with the lightest, brightest, whitest thing, which in this case is going to be this corner down here where the sun's hitting this sidewalk, and so that would be option number 2. Option 3 is start at the focal point, which in this case is the same thing. And option number 4 is start with some local color that needs to be resolved before you can proceed. Sometimes, it's not the case here, but sometimes you've got a painting going and until you nail down the real color of some object, it's hard to proceed, but that's not the case here. So my choice is pretty easy today. It's going to be the lightest, brightest, whitest. I'm saying 3 words there to make it clear, right? The brightest spot, which is here, and the focal point, which is also here. So that makes it a bit of an easy choice. And again, here in this stage, we're dealing mostly with opaque layers of paint, although you'd have to put quotations around that somewhat, because sometimes when you say opaque, what you're actually doing, to be honest, is slightly translucent. In other words, you still slightly see through it, but I still call it the opaque layer. And here again, want to look at my photograph to make sure I get this part right. So, and this layer is mostly hard edges. So again, it behooves me to move forward with great caution because, why? Right? You got it. Because it's easy for a painting to accidentally erroneously have too many hard edges. So I want to be careful. I'm doing mostly hard edges right now. I better not do too much of it. Now, the one area in this painting where I can do hard edges, where I do want hard edges, is right here at the focal point. The area of it's perfectly located on the canvas, 1/3, 1/3, and it is the focal point. It's the area of highest contrast, the lightest lights next to the darkest darks. Almost. It is the lightest lights, not quite adjacent to the darkest darks, but not far from it. So this is dark, and these figures are slightly dark. So I'm achieving, the look, the feel that I want. And that might be all of that color that I want to put on right now. So I'm using titanium white. Oh, and a quick aside for those of you who are new to my channel. My titanium white is always alkyd white. That simply means it's a kind of, there are many brands of alkyd. Alkyd is an adjective that means it has alkaline in it. It's a fast drying titanium white, because I like to be able to plaster this on fairly thick without worrying that it's going to take a month to dry, which is real easy to do when you're talking titanium white. Okay, so rather than add a fast dry medium to my titanium, which would thin it out and make it more transparent, which I don't want. I want it very opaque. Rather than adding a medium like liquid to it, I just I just buy straight up titanium white, titanium alkyd white. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, it turns out there are several changes I've made to the scene that I'm looking at down the street to my right. One is there are actually several more awnings than I than I'm going to indicate here in this painting. Those are the kinds of quote-unquote mistakes that are perfectly permissible. It doesn't matter whether I'm accurate in reflecting the right number of awnings. That doesn't matter. I'm not going to hang this painting on a wall and then hang a photograph next to it and ask people to give me a grade as to how close I got to the photograph. Does that make sense? And yet a lot of students paint as if they were going to do that, and they worry about things that they ought not to worry about. There are some things that do matter. Perspective, which is huge in this painting, but I believe I've got it right. You saw me, my vanishing point is right about there. And I was using my brush, or my long handle brush, to get all these lines pretty close to accurate. Those are the kind of mistakes that you don't want to make. You do not want to make perspectival mistakes. Can I make up a word there? Perspectival, is that a word? I have no idea. It is now. You don't want to make perspective errors, but things like and when you do figures, human figures, there's all kinds of mistakes you can make with human figure, because everybody knows what a human figure looks like. Likewise, not quite to the same degree, but likewise when you're doing cars, automobiles, everybody has a keen intuitive sense of what cars look like. So you have to get automobiles fairly realistically, or abstract enough that it doesn't matter. But even then, the abstraction is never a cover-up, never a cover-up for bad drawing. Ooh, I've never said that before. Let me repeat that. Abstraction is never to be used as a cover-up for bad drawing. And yet, that is what a lot of people do. A lot of people, of course, they want to do realism, but they can't, or they, lack the skill, the training, the know-how, or the patience. So they just do, quote-unquote, impressionism, and they're like the kid who shot the arrow and then drew the target, drew the bullseye around wherever the arrow hit. You know that story, right? No, that is not legal. If you're going to do impressionism, doesn't mean you do bad drawing. In fact, in my book, and I'm pretty adamant about this, I mean my book figuratively, not my literal book. Maybe it'll be in my literal book too. Impressionistic painting is much more difficult than realistic painting, realism. Because with realism, you don't need to think. All you need to do is copy. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive to some of you who have a hard time copying, but believe me, for those of us who can copy very well, copying is easy. And when you're doing realism, you don't have to think. You just copy what's in front of you. I don't know if I like that rhythm or not. Maybe just push it back a little bit. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay now. Okay, where do I go from there? So here I am doing the last layer. And I call it opaque, but a lot of this stuff in here is not opaque. It's actually translucent, quite translucent. That is, you can see through it to some degree. It's fuzzy, and you can see through it. So even though I call this the opaque layer, many times it's not opaque. It's actually still translucent, and that's okay. So opaque is a dangerous animal. Opaque is a difficult horse to tame. So you want to use opacity carefully in my world. I'm having second thoughts about that also, but I'm going to try this. I've got a fan brush here. Whoops, I don't like that. Evidently the fan brush had some turpenoid on it, or Gamsol on it, and so I just blended in a lot more than I wanted to. Ooh, now I'm removing more than I wanted to. That's one thing leading to another. Well, one thing's for sure, that I'm going to have some interesting texture over here. Happy little accidents. I'm not going to try too hard to fix all that, but I am going to come back with pencil. That's a complete accident splotch of orange right there. But in fact, yes, I do like it. I like that accident, so I'm going to leave it. Now, there's supposed to be a person's head here. Let me smudge that back out. Okay, I do like that now. How about that? While I'm in that area, I'm going to mix up some dirty blue, pale dirty blue. That's a funny expression, is it? Pale dirty blue. And do some of this awning here has some transparent glass or plastic or something in the roof of it, the ceiling of the awning. It is creating a nice rhythm. Rhythm in painting is bum 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 bum. Here's rhythm. Bum 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 bum. The windows are rhythm. Bum 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 bum. Those are typically recognized as the principles of design, not an element of design, but one of the principles of design is what you do with the elements. The elements are line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Color, did I say that? Yep. And the principles of design are the verbs, if you will, the things you do to the elements of design. And tension, balance, rhythm, repetition, and so on and so on and so forth. Now that I've stepped back for a moment, I'm going to take a second to get this fan brush. Here's a good trick. Fan brush is a good tool, by the way, but you need to be careful not to do the Bob Ross fan brush trick too much. You can do a little bit of it, but not too much. You cannot make a pine tree, a cute little pine tree, if you're a real painter, with a fan brush. I'm trying to get it good and dry, clean and dry, because I'm finding the hardness here, all of a sudden it's bothering me too much. So I'm just softening, putting a glow on all of that. Now I'm going to come back after I've done this. I'm going to come back and relighten some of that stuff. You probably can't even see the impact that just had. Sorry about that. A little bit too subtle for the camera conditions today. When in doubt, drop your brushes, of course. Let me get some new brushes out here. Okay, let's go back in here now. Now that I just made that mess, let's come back in there with some more warm white and accent some of those light bits. I hope you understand that when you're painting, especially a lot of glow like this, it doesn't even matter to me what these shapes are. Now I know that's a person, I believe, and that is, and these are lampposts. But in between okay, why did I put? What is that? Is that a drawing of something? No, it is not. If you're thinking then you're thinking way too much literal detail. It's the grumpy adult in you. Saying something like, and forgive me while I mock out the grumpy adult in our brains again. The grumpy adult says, "Well, that's supposed to be a picture of. It doesn't look like anything." The grumpy adult is also a whiner. I don't know if you notice that or not. He's also a whiner and a wiener. Whiner wiener. Okay, let me change gears here. Let me change gears somewhat. When you are in the realm of opaque painting, now this applies to those you who paint, like Kevin McPherson and a lot of other really good painters who paint all opaque. Okay, now Kevin McPherson is better than me in every way, except he would be better than he is if we would paint transparent instead of opaque. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, that's a pretty arrogant statement, but I'm right. Okay, hang on. Well, how do I know I'm right? I was just this morning, again, I don't remember why. It was left open on my computer. I was looking at some Franz Hals artwork with my jaw hanging open, with my drooling in full gear. I was looking at Franz Hals paintings, and I was going, yeah, that's the way good painters paint the best painters, and that's the way the best painters have painted for 400 years. I guess that's what I'm going to say. If Kevin McPherson would paint more like Franz Hals, he'd be a better painter than he is. Anyway, enough of that. And I love Kevin, like his artwork, and he's better than I am at the moment. I hope to catch up and pass him before I die. But when you are in the realm of opaque painting, finally going to start to make a point. When you're in the opaque zone, and again, you've heard this from me before if you watched many times, it is almost always a good idea. And there are not many things in painting that you can say this or that is almost always a good idea. Are you with me? But it's almost always a good idea in the realm of opaque painting to come back and do a second or even a third, even a fourth layer of slightly lighter color than what's already there. So that's what I just did there. There was a certain lightness there, and then I came back and did a certain even lighter than that. And watch, just for fun, I'm going to mix up a tiny dab of almost pure titanium white and put it right there. And that's a good idea. Okay? Now, let's go up from there. I need to get the sidewalk, the reflection, the glow, and this sidewalk coming toward the viewer here, toward us. Let's get some of that nailed down. And here I am almost certainly going to be doing revisiting the fuzz layer. I want this to be translucent and mostly soft edged. To continue with hard edge would be too much. Very easy for a painting to have too many hard edges. I'm saying that because, of course, everything I say, I'm saying it because I need to remember it myself. Do you understand that, right? Part of the reason I teach you guys is because I'm teaching myself all the time. It's like the analytical, linguistic side of my brain staying engaged, keeping the principles, keeping my mind alert to the principles of painting while I am actually painting with my intuitive brain. Ooh, I've never said that before. Part of the reason I teach, those who teach learn the most. Part of the reason I teach is because it keeps the analytical, linguistic teacher side of my brain engaged while I am in fact actually painting mostly with my intuitive brain. Anyway, so easy for a painting to have too many hard edges. Almost impossible for a painting to have too many hard edges. Okay, let's move on. Let me look at what do I want to tackle next. There's all kinds of stuff to be done. Okay, so all of this is translucent. The only opaque area is right here. So only 15% of this whole canvas will have opaque paint on it. I'm well on target for doing that. Now, lots of translucent, but very little opaque. I've done the focal point. I've done the lightest, brightest, whitest stuff here. Now, where? All right, thank you. My camera turned off a little while ago. Let me see your comments. Aisha Allaward, hi, you're an awesome teacher in person. Thank you so much. Is it Aisha? Am I saying that right? I discovered your channel yesterday. How fun! Thank you. Welcome aboard. And I'm surprised how someone who have all this knowledge isn't well known. Well, we're working on it, Aisha. Thanks for adding to our numbers. We are working on it. Your art and personality are awesome. Oh, bless you. Thank you. Your English is beautiful. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to hang up right here, and I'll be back in just a few minutes. Thanks for watching.